Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2020 Ford Transit T250, we're going to be showing you how to install the CURT Custom Fit trailer wiring harness. Before we do that though, let's just take a minute. We'll check this one out and make sure it's going to be right for you. So for those of you wanting to pull a trailer around with your Transit, you're going to need a way to power up the lights on the trailer, right? That way you're safe and legal. And that's where a kit like this is going to come into play. So with this one, we have the 4-way flat type trailer connector, really common on those smaller, medium-sized trailers, and it'll provide us with our turn signals, our brake lights, and our tail lights. For those of you whose trailers has this type of connector, that'll let you plug in there and send all those signals back to the trailer. As far as mounting this up, you have a couple of different options. What we did today is just dropped the wiring down, and we're just going to loop it around the safety chain opening there to keep it secure. And then I like to add maybe about a foot of wire loom just to put over the end of it to help kind of clean up the installation look. You can also pick up a bracket, something like this, be able to mount that up. Suppose you could do it right to the bumper, or you could get a bracket that connects to the hitch and runs it out that way and be able to push a connector through there and have it set up like that. Either way is completely fine and up to you. These Transits do pull some larger trailers around. If the connector on your trailer looks something like this, a 7-way round type connector, then there's a couple things you could do to be able to hook up that type of trailer to the Transit. One of them being Taconcha makes a kit that is all set up and gives you that 7-way round connector on the back of your vehicle, and will also allow you to set up a trailer brake controller. It's a pretty nice setup. I've done a few of them. Comes with pretty much everything that you're going to need to do that. Or let's say if you want to go a different route, or maybe you got this trailer now and end up getting a different one that has a 7-way. You could always use this kit and kind of build off of it to convert it to a 7-way and allow you to hook up a brake controller and stuff too. So you could use this in conjunction with the etrailer.com Universal Brake Controller Install Kit. That'll give you the 7-way connector and all the wiring and parts needed to be able to hook up a brake controller as well. But that's just something that I thought I'd mention, being that we do see these in here quite a bit, getting setups like that. Other than that, really about it. As far as the installation goes, it's a custom fit kit, so it just plugs into the back of your taillights, and then you'll have to run a power wire from the back all the way up to the front and hook it up to the battery or the power supply. With that said, when you're routing that power wire, be really mindful, because a lot of times it's going to be just long enough to reach. So something to think about there. And in my case, how we set ours up, I did have to extend one of the wires that goes from the driver's side taillight over to the passenger side taillight. It just fell short a little bit, and that seems to happen to quite a few people. So I would recommend getting about 3 extra foot of 14 gauge wiring and a couple of extra butt connectors. That way you can kind of tie that in and set it up if it's something that you do run into. It's kind of one of those things, you'd rather have those couple little extra parts on hand and not need them than be halfway through the install and have to get that figured out. And we carry all that stuff right here at eTrailer. But if this is something that you don't want to mess with or have the time, definitely understand you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can do this for you. But if you're going to do it yourself, hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our Transit. Go ahead and open up your cargo doors. And the first thing that we're going to do is remove this little scuff liner here. So it looks like on ours, we're going to have a total of 5 fasteners that I can see. 1 in the middle and 2 on each side. So if you take a little pick or something, flathead screwdriver, pry up on them caps. That'll expose the screw. There's a 6mm head. Just work that out, and I'll do the same thing for all the others. With all those out, now you're able to grab this, and we'll just set it off to the side out of our way for now. We are going to need to get our taillights removed. So there's two fasteners holding them in place. One at the top, one at the bottom. I have a T250 Torx bit. And pull those out. And then with these, what you want to do is kind of close your door about halfway. Something like that. And then we can go to the outside of our van and be able to pry on them and get the lights popped out. These lights, you can kind of start to pry on them a little bit, but there's just some pins that are kind of holding these in place. So what you can do, if you got a little trim tool or something like that, you can take that, kind of just work it in there to give you a little extra leverage to pop these things free. And then once you have them released, you can get it disconnected. Just a single tab there. Push down on it. Separate the end. We'll set our light off to the side and do the same thing to get the passenger one removed. Take this little grommet. Just kind of squeeze it in, that way you can pull it out. All right. And then, if you look right here, our van has this little panel. These are all kind of set up a little bit different, but regardless, I'm gonna have to get access in there. So this panel just kind of pulls out and up, and then you can take your T-connector wiring, the side that has the yellow and brown wires. We're gonna feed that out through that opening there, and plug those two ends in together. You want to take the rubber grommet, just cut a slice in it. I like to do about something like that. Then towards the inside of it, make a little bigger opening. Right? And that way, the wires can kind of sit inside of it. What you want to do is put the grommet back in place. Make sure it's all seated and everything. And then in the kit they give you a little tube of the silicone. Just put a bead over it. Help everything stay sealed up. And you could put the light back on right now. What I'll probably do is kind of give this stuff a minute to set up and dry before I do that. And while that's happening, we can move on to something else. We can grab the black wire that's coming out of our module box there, and then the big bundle of power wire that comes in the kit. We're going to connect those together. That's how we're going to make our electrical connections, whether it be butt connectors or ring terminals. But you want to strip the insulation back some, give the bare wire underneath the twist, take a butt connector, put it over the bare end, and crimp it down. And I've upgraded to these heat shrink style connectors because the ends will seal up. Just helps a little bit more with corrosion, but the ones that come in the kit will work just fine. I like to just tape them up real good with electrical tape after I make the connection, but I'm going to plug the black wire from the converter to the other end. If you do happen to use these heat shrinks, the way you seal them up, just grab a heat gun and evenly apply heat to the end. We need to figure out a way to get our 4-way flat wiring, our green T-connector wire, and the power wire from up here to underneath of our vehicle. And on the bottom side, we should have a grommet that we could utilize. As far as removing this threshold piece, I'm not really sure why they had me do that. Like I said, maybe these vans are all set up a little bit different. because this green T connector will have to go to the passenger side eventually. But with where everything's going to be mounted, I didn't really have a way to feed that wire out and run it over there underneath the threshold. So we're just going to go underneath the vehicle, under and up to the passenger side. Just want to throw that out there in case you're wondering why that threshold piece is removed too, but not a huge deal, it's easy enough. But let's go underneath and look for that grommet. Underneath, here's that big grommet we were looking for. It's got a flat screwdriver, you kind of pry on it, pop it out of position. While we're under here, on the passenger side, there's the same one in the exact same spot. Go ahead and pop that one out too. Back up top, you can now grab those wires and start to drop them down. You probably won't just be able to blindly push it down right through the pocket, but I feel like it's pretty close, so if you just kind of jam them down there, you could probably go underneath and see them and start to feed them down all the way. Before we go down underneath the driver's side, pull those wires through and everything, just to save us, you know, so many times going up and down from up here to under the vehicle. If you come to the passenger side, you can just take a fish wire or something. I got a piece of tubing. You can use a metal coat hanger, another piece of wire, kind of whatever you got. And I'm just going to feed this down. I'll leave a little bit up top here to work with, and the reason for this is once we route our green T connector wire over here, we could tape it to the pull wire and then just pull it right up into position where we need it to go. So underneath now on our driver's side, pretty easy, reach up there and we'll start to feed all of the wires down. Underneath what I've done, where these wires came out, I cut a hole in our grommet just like we did with the tail light there. At the very end, once everything's done, I'll come back and seal it up, but we can start to route our wires. The black wire, that's going to get hooked up to the battery, so that'll run to the front. We'll worry about that later. We'll focus on these first. Our 4-way flat and our green T connector wire run up along through here, where our 4-way flat drops down. I just have it connected to our trailer hitch. And the green wire continues along here. Now, I did have to extend this wire. I tried every which way, you know, pulling down from the inside to get more length and everything, and I just don't think it'll reach. You know, so I used about an extra 2, maybe 3 foot of wire. It should be more than enough. A couple extra butt connectors to extend it. You know, knowing that I had to do that now, you know, I suppose you could just get one butt connector, cut the wire, and run it where we remove that scuff liner on the inside, because you could probably get this itty bitty wire through one of the holes in there, you know. But no big deal either way. You know, choice is yours how you want to do it. But I ran it up and over and taped the T connector to the red wire, or I'm sorry, the red fish wire that we dropped down. Same thing with this grommet that I did here, a little hole in it. And all these wires are just loosely routed for now. Once we have everything wrapped up on the inside and secured and whatnot, then I'll come back and actually zip tie everything up. But for the time being, let's go back up top here and get the rest of our stuff hooked up. Over here on our passenger side, you know, I pulled the fish wire up, which our T connector was taped to, and did the same exact thing that we did on the driver's side. Put a little slice in the grommet, fed the T connector through, connected one in there, and then you can grab our tail light. Let's get a plug right into it. Make sure we're not going to pinch any wires or anything. And we'll just reinstall the tail light the opposite way that we removed it. On our driver's side, did the same exact thing. Took our tail light, plugged it back in, and now this light is ready to get reinstalled. We have a white wire that comes out of our converter box, and on the end of it there's a pre-attached ring terminal. We're going to need to ground that, so I just pushed it through that hole there. I think this will be a good spot. It's kind of out of the way and everything. Good solid piece of metal to work with. So I'm just taking the included self-tapping screw. Run that down until it's secure. Now we need to secure the converter box. I'm just going to use the two-sided sticky tape to do that. So I cleaned off the surface real well, some rubbing alcohol, let it dry. And the surface I plan on adhering this to. So I'll just go ahead, apply this. And since it's kind of tight up in here, I go ahead, stick this to this location here and show you how it turned out. Here's where I ended up sticking the converter box to up out of the way on this flat surface. So I went ahead, put our little threshold panel back in place, pop this little panel back in place, and with that done, we should be all wrapped up inside here. So I'll close up the doors and we can go back underneath, start to get some more of our wiring routed. I went ahead and got that power wire routed all the way up front. And when you're routing wiring, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts, so just keep that in mind. But I just followed this factory harness pretty much all the way up to the front here. And then every now and again, just use some zip ties to help keep it secure. And try to be conscious of, try to use every bit of wire that you can, because it's going to be just long enough to reach our battery. But it runs along the side of our fuel tank here. But again, just following that factory harness. It comes up around through here. And then probably kind of tricky, loose side of it a little bit, but that harness just continues along there. And I kept the wiring up high and tight against it, far away as possible from our exhaust. And right here is where it drops down. And what I've done, kind of like what we did with the taillight, I went up top, took that pull wire, dropped it down, and then attached our power wire to it. That way, when we go back up top, we can pull it right into position. In the engine compartment, this is where our power wire comes up, and I cut it to length. Didn't really have to take a whole lot off because it's pretty much just long enough. But I connected it to the included fuse holder using a butt connector. Other end of the fuse holder crimped on a ring terminal. Don't have the fuse in just yet. We'll hook the ring terminal up first. So if you look, right here by the fuse box, there will be a little cover here. And this post is, you can use it to jump start your vehicle, things like that. I just pop that off out of the way. And we'll remove this nut with a 13mm socket. Take a ring terminal, put it over the post, and just tighten the nut back down. Take our fuse now that it's hooked up, pop that into the holder, close up the cover, and put our little plastic cover back on. Now all that's left to do is test the wiring to make sure that it's working correctly. To test the wiring, I like to use this tester as opposed to just hooking up to a trailer. And I say that because if your trailer happens to have any issues, could mislead you, thinking it's something you did wrong on the vehicle side. With that in mind, we'll try out our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brakes. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the CURT Custom Fit vehicle wiring harness on our 2020 Ford Transit T250.